everybody, and welcome back to Glow Your Own. This is session 5. Today we've got Sophie and Sarah and Vicky and me, Dane, and we're going to be doing some creative crafting just to give some ideas out for how you can integrate your code and your circuits into making a lantern housing to make your piece of coding really cool and have something on your window sill or in your house on a table somewhere, or even outside if it's safe to do that. Right, so we've got a couple of different ideas, and we have got a couple of different makes that people are going to be sharing. So I know Vicky's got a really cool make. I think I've got a couple of ideas, and Sarah's been making things, and Sophie's got some things to show too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with making, I think what I might make first is my jellyfish. So if I can find it, I'll turn the light off to make it a bit more atmospheric, but all I've got here is a plastic milk bottle, but anything like that will do. And so the first make that I'm going to make is cheating a bit. So you might have come across these little coin batteries that we've shown a few times before. So they're just 3-volt batteries, and it's something that we've sometimes used to test your LED. So you might remember that the positive and negative of the battery, oh thanks Sophie, positive and negative of the battery, if it's connected up to the LED the wrong way around, it doesn't work. And so if you turn your LED by 90 degrees, which I'm going to just do there, connect it up, you've got your circuit. And so you've got your little fully connected circuit with your LED lit up. And so the cool thing you can do with this is that you don't need to have one battery per LED. You can put 2 on, which is quite fun. So, and if you've got a little bit of tape, you can just tape the back of your LED with your battery, and you connect it. And if you're inclined, you might just sort of bend the angle a little bit, and then you've sort of got maybe a nose and 2 eyes. So you can stick that on the outside, or if you are able to, you can stick it on the inside of a milk bottle. So I'm just going to cut off the bottom of my milk bottle with a pair of scissors, and if you need help with scissors, obviously ask a parent, but I'm just going to do it really quickly, so it's not going to be very beautiful. So I'm going to cut it off so it's not fully cut off. So I've just basically made a flap, because I might want to close this up later and tape it shut. So I'm going to put my battery inside here. I'm just going to attach it. Ooh, dear. This is when things start falling apart. Let's read that on. Up to the. There we go. Stick it on my bottle so you can see this kind of glow. Then you can do all sorts of things. So I'm just going to now use the lid of my bottle top, and I'm going to poke it through these 2 bits of string that I've conveniently attached to the wall, and I'm going to screw the lid back on. And I've got a really simple hanging creature that you then might, if you happen to have some bits of paper that you've cut up already. So I've just got some white paper and a pencil or a pen or something. You can start curling around your paper around a pen to make a nice little curly piece of paper, and then you can add that to your creation and start making little tentacles for your creation. So I'm just going to do a few more of those just to give you the idea. Oops. And so the thing that is quite fun to play with is, so you can see my milk bottle is transparent. So things that are transparent, materials that are transparent or reflective, make really good lantern housings because they can diffuse the light in a nice way, or they can reflect the light in a fun way. So I'm just going to add a few more bits of tentacles to my lovely sea creature. So you can see I've got a cute little sea creature there with two little eyes. And now you don't have to use the LED and the battery setup that I've got here, because it turns out that your Arduino, if you are careful, your Arduino will fit completely inside your milk bottle. So that means that if you wanted to connect your Arduino up, this is very difficult to do with only one pair of hands, is that you can put your Arduino inside your milk bottle and tape it back shut and enclose the housing there. So it might be that you can still make eyes, and I'll show you how to do that in a second, because we've got this cute trick of extending the wires from your Arduino breadboard. So it means you can have these two eyes that are powered by your Arduino and breadboard and not by a little coin battery as I've got there. So that's just one example of using a bit of recycling to make a fun housing. So I'm just going to reconnect that up because it's quite cute to have that on display. If I can find where my lid went, maybe I'll just use a little bit of tape. There we go. I have a lot of respect for the Blue Peter people. They seem to really know how to do this. Let's just tape that. So hopefully you can see my little creature. There's the lid. There we go. Okay, so obviously we've been making our breadboards with our Arduinos, and if you can remember earlier on, I showed you this little egg box before, and inside it was all this complicated looking wire. I'm just going to highlight onto there. Hopefully you can see, so you can see all this sort of complicated wire inside the egg box. And so what I'm going to show you is to how you can extend your LEDs from your breadboard. So you can put eyes on milk bottles, or you can put a little thing together for an egg box. Okay, so for that, I've got another circuit here, and I do hope this will work. This is not the most straightforward thing to do on camera, but if you have a bit of time and patience, it's easy to do at home. Okay, so we've got our circuit that we made last week here. Hopefully you can see that. I've got bits of blue tack that will keep things under control. So hopefully you can see this little Arduino here. And so you might remember, here's the battery. That becomes useful later. Okay, so I've got my 3 LEDs that I put together from last week, and they're connected up. And what I want to do is I want to make this LED be a sort of portable thing that's away from my breadboard. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug my Arduino to make it safe, and I'm going to test, and I'm going to mark with a little piece of sellotape and a little and a Sharpie to remind myself which way round my my LED is. So I'm going to pull it out of the breadboard, and I've remembered where it is, and I'm going to draw on a piece of tape. So I've just put a piece of tape on my Arduino like that to remind myself which way around the LED came out. So because obviously that makes a difference when I plug it in. I need to make sure that the positive end of the LED is in one hole and the negative LED is in the other hole. So I'm just going to remind myself by marking it on this little bit of tape here, just to remind myself which way around it is. And I'm also going to test out that that's right with my little coin battery here. So the positive side of the coin battery is connected to the long leg, and the negative side of the coin battery is connected to the short leg, and that's what makes our circuit work like that. Okay, and here's the tricky bit. So we've got this stuff, and it's called a wrapping wire, and we'll put the link in the email that we send out. But this is a really easy thing to get hold of from a hardware store. You can buy it from Amazon, you can buy it from all sorts of different online places or a hardware store. And so all I've done is I've cut two different lengths, and it's really simple to cut. You can just cut it with a pair of scissors. It's quite safe to do. And what we want to do is we want to expose the end of the wire. So this is where it might be quite tricky to see. So you can see at the moment, I've got this yellow plastic around the wire, and I'm going to just expose the end by using the pair of closed scissors. So just the flat end of the closed scissors, not the sharp bit in the middle. So close your scissors and maybe just push it against the casing and just pull it, and you can just expose the end of the wire there. I don't know if that's easy to see. I'm going to get a piece of something dark. So hopefully you can see there's a shiny little bit at the end of this wire. You can actually also, if you've got fingernails, you can do it with your fingers. So you can just grip it and pull it with your fingers. So if you've got some fingernails, you can see that I've made that little length of wire a little bit longer. So you can sort of see the end of that. You can see the yellow plastic, and you can just about see the shiny exposed metal inside. So to be able to wrap it around your LED, so I've got some pre-cut pieces because I wasn't sure if that was going to work. So this is exactly the same thing. I've got a piece of wire where I've done this to both ends. And what you can do is if you just separate the legs out of your LED, this is a bit tricky to see there. Oops, just drop my wire. So I've separated out the LED legs there, which you can hopefully see. There we go, that's better. And if you wind the leg with, or wrap the leg of your wire, starting, so I tend to start at where the sort of LED part is. This is really difficult to see. Let's see if I can change some of the lighting here. So if you take the LED end of your wire and wrap the wire around the leg like this, hopefully you can see a little bit of that. You can see how the LED is being wrapped around, or the LED leg is being kind of, is having this wire wrapped around it. And then what I do is I will double back on that with the one that's still got the kind of casing around it. So you can now see that there's exposed wire wrapped around the leg of your LED. And then you've wrapped around that, the casing. I'm going to do that a second time because that's really difficult to see. But hopefully you can see there what you're aiming for. So we'll do that again. So this is the second piece of wire now. So again, starting at the light part of the LED. So I'm just lining up my exposed bit of wire, and I'm wrapping the exposed bit of wire around the leg. So I'll just pause there and show you where I've got to. Hopefully, does that? It's very difficult to see because it's quite small. But if you wrap the exposed bit of the wire around your LED leg and then double back with your bit that's got the casing on, I'm going to hold that up so you can see that again. Oops. You can now see that that's working. You can now see that the LED has got these two bits of wire wrapped around the legs and is nice and long. So if I take my LED now, which is sort of just on two extension wires there, I can then get my coin battery again. But the problem here is I don't know which way round the coin battery. Well, I could actually check, couldn't I? Because this is the long LED leg over here. This is the long LED leg is over here. So this is the long leg. So if I put this long leg against the positive part of the battery and the other LED leg, I've now got my LED on a long piece of wire that's connected to the battery. But this means that you've got potentially loads of bits of wire just hanging around. So one of the things that I quite like to do is to tidy this up. So I know Sophie enjoys straight wires in Tinkercad. When you're making things, it's even more important to try and keep your wires under control. So what you can do, just to make this a little bit tidier, is you can twist your LED extension wires so you've got a slightly tidier sort of. So in technology, this is probably called something like a coaxial cable or something like that, to sort of for some sort of or
Dane,
just even.
can I just interrupt just for a second?
Yeah.
There's lots of things in the chat, and it's all.
Yeah.
People are asking questions about the LED legs. Mary's had some great ideas, but please, if it's not about what Dane is doing, please don't put anything in the chat, just so that everyone can concentrate on the really cool things that Dane is showing us how to do. Okay? So if we just put things in the chat if they're about what Dane is doing. All right? Thank you very much, everyone. Sorry to interrupt, Dane.
That's all right. I hope this is making a bit of sense. So what I've got now is I've got my LED and I've got my my kind of extended legs here. And what I don't know, now I've twisted it up, is which way around it is. And this is where it's quite helpful to have your coin battery. So I've got my the tested here. So I know this one here is the right way around. So this one definitely is the longer leg. Happens to be the shorter bit of wire here, but I know this one is my longer leg. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the wire around on itself to make it a bit thicker. And I'm going to, and this is the bit that's really tricky, I'm going to get one of my jumper leads from the box, and I'm going to poke that into the breadboard in the same position that the LED longer leg was before, that I've marked out on this bit of paper. And there are all sorts of ways to do this in terms of reminding yourself which way around things are. You can even just test it out, and if it's not working, you can have another go. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to force, this is really impossible to see, I'm trying to force this tiny bit of wire into the square part of the breadboard. So hopefully that will make sense to you, even if you can't see it very clearly. And I'm using my little jumper wire cable to poke it in. And so I've got one in successfully, which is great. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the other one, which I know is the shorter leg. So I'm going to fold that exposed bit of wire over. I'm going to find the hole. In fact, I've put this in on the wrong side of the junction there, so I have to do that again. There we go. And if you're lucky, it will just go in by itself. But sometimes you might need to give it a little bit of encouragement with a little stick or a paperclip or something else. I'm going to try and find. Well, that's in the wrong one. So this is where you need really good eyes and a lot of patience to do this. So I'm going to poke it in there. It's very difficult to do and show, so I'm afraid you're going to have to trust me that this is going in the right way. I'm going to fold in the other leg, and you can see, oops. So we're going to try and hold that up to the camera so you can see it better. So you can see maybe that you've got some wires there that just need to get encouraged to go in. So I'm just going to try and do that. Oops, this is really tricky. And you might be more dexterous than I am, but my fat fingers, there we go, that's in. Okay, so both of these pieces of wire are now in the breadboard, and I'm going to just encourage them to go nice and secure by using this little technique. And then, because I spent such a lot of time doing that, I want to make sure that it's secure. So I'm going to get my bit of tape again, and I'm going to just tape it down, and that's what locks it in place. Okay, so in theory, now I've connected up my, oops, what's happened here? There we go. In theory, now I've connected up my wire with my extension cables. If I plug in my Arduino again, please work. Excellent. And what's happening here? Why is the whiteboard keep coming up? So you can see I've got my two lights that are on the breadboard, and then I've got my third light here that's been connected through this long extension wire. So if you're able to do that, well done. It's not easy. And I'm going to just, so that's your first step of making your lovely spinning round egg box design. The next step that you might want to take is to get your egg box. And here I've got just an ordinary kind of box of half a dozen eggs. And you can see it's perfectly designed for fitting in 6 eggs. It's not really perfectly designed for fitting in an Arduino, but by using a bit of creativity, you can just adapt it to do that. So what I'm going to do that, I'm going to chop off these two spikes in the middle of the egg box, and that will make, quite helpfully, now a hole in my egg box, which I can feed. I'll unplug my Arduino. I can feed my Arduino cable, my USB cable, through the hole in the egg box. And I can flatten that down to make a bit more space. And I can either chop off this extra spike here, or I can again just fold that down just to make some space. So if you fold down your egg box, it actually turns out to be quite a nice casing. And it turns out as well, if you fit your Arduino and your breadboard into there, and if you can manage to contain all your wires carefully, you can close it, and you've then got an egg box with a USB wire sticking out the side. That's kind of good, but we need something for our LED to poke through. And a really simple way of doing that is to get yourself a pencil that's not super sharp. If I can find my pencil. I've got a pencil here. So just be careful and make sure it's not super sharp. So this one's relatively blunt. Because what you want to do is you just want to poke a little hole through your egg box and be careful with your fingers. So I'm going to do this from the other side so you can see it come through. So I'm going to make a little hole just there. So you can see a little tiny hole that actually is smaller than the LED itself. So when you eventually get round to this part, you can, so you've got your little hole, hopefully you can see a little tiny hole in there. So you're just gonna, there we go, hopefully that's visible. You can then poke your LED through the egg box lid, which has got a little hole in it. You can then close your egg box up completely and get hold of the battery, charge that battery that we used last time, and you can just plug that in and turn it on. And if it will behave, the light will go on. If something has fallen out, it won't. So what's happened here? I managed to, so a little, well, one of my wires has got loose, so I've lost my ground wire. So I'll put that back in. There we go. Seal everything back up again. Lost another connection. Oh dear, this is so tricky. So I think that was from. This is when it never works when you're doing it live. So somewhere in my Arduino, I've lost my connection, but you get the, oh, there we go.
Yeah.
So you can.
See, you just have to be patient, Dane.
You just have to be patient and don't panic. So there I've got my egg box with a single blinking light in it, which is nice and cool. And if you're patient and you get your coding right, and this is where I made one before, and I was very careful, and I don't know if you remember, but I was very careful to make sure I'd labeled my wire. So I don't know if you can see the numbers in here. So that's just a sequence of lights that turn on and then turn off, and they turn on for 1 second and then they turn off, and simultaneously the next light turns on, and wait for a second and turn off, and simultaneously the next light turns on. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of them. So like a clock face. And if you get that sequence right and you have a little bit of luck, that's how you can get your 12 little lights. That's just a development of your one simple one that we've just shown the make there. You can make yourself a nice little spinny round LED light. Okay, right. So that's that make. Hopefully that has made sense. Now let's attend to some of the comments in the chat. I've not been paying attention to any of them at all. So if there's something that Sophie or Sarah or Vicky has spotted that is going to be useful to share, how about we have a break and see if there's any kind of ideas that might be useful.
So we've had a few questions, but you've actually covered some of them already. So talking about how to remember which way around the LED goes, which I think you mentioned, because everybody was paying attention when we were talking last time, Dane, that LEDs only let electricity flow through them one way. And so if you put it the wrong way around, your LED will turn on, which is always sad. So that was a question.
We were just talking about what the battery is for, and whether that's useful, and that you can't send new code via Arduino when it's plugged into the battery. You're right, we have to plug it back into the computer. But if you've written your code and you've tested your circuit and you're happy with that everything works, you can then unplug it from the computer and put in a different battery so that you can put it in your window and let other people admire your work without needing it to be on a computer. But yeah, a few people said, how do we put the code on? That is, yes, you'll need to plug it back into a computer to do that. That's the only thing I think I remember from the chat.
So I think we may have covered that in, I forget if it was session 2 or session 3, but we talked about when you code up your Arduino, you need to have it plugged into your computer. But once you've coded up your Arduino, the code is just there. So I'm just going to remind people that, so I've got just a USB power supply and my USB and my Arduino and breadboard situation here. So that's the cool thing about Arduinos, is that they save what you've done onto the Arduino board itself. So once you just plug it into something, and so it can be plugged into the wall using maybe a mobile phone charger or a USB adapter like I've got here. But just to be able to make it portable, we use sometimes one of these rechargeable kind of phone charging battery, like a power bank, if you have one of these. And this could be something that is on your birthday present list or a present list for some other occasion, that you might get your someone to buy you a power bank. So when you've got your Arduino, you can power it up like this. And it's not most waterproof, but once you've got your, and now I've got my extension battery ready, I'm going to try and, this is when wire management is really tricky. So I've got a single Arduino here that's just lighting up, and I'm going to, just for speed, I'm just going to use a piece of blue tack, and I'm going to blue tack this to this. So I've got a blinking nose, and I'm going to just put everything else inside this milk bottle. I've just sorry, I cut that up. I'm going to put my battery inside here too. And you can fit everything in just about. And it's not fully waterproof, but what I've got here is a very simple way of making something, and I'll obviously would need to tape it up much more carefully than this, which I'm not doing a very good job. So let's see if I can do a better job by just getting loads of tape. So just put loads of tape around it. It's not the easiest thing to do with a pair of hands, but you can get the idea. Let's just cover this in tape. Imagine that I did a bit of a better taping job at the bottom. You can see it's not safe at all. But then once you put the lid on, and if you hang it, and as long as this has been completely, you might put a bit of cling film around it to kind of enclose it fully. You could then hang it up potentially outside. I'm just going to hang it up on this bit of string that I've got going on here. There we go, I'm just going to tie a knot in that. So you've then got a little hanging lantern. It's not the most beautiful looking thing because I haven't done it very well, but it gives you the idea that you can put together a lantern housing out of a milk bottle or an egg box. Obviously you could hang that up too if you wanted to. Okay, right, so that's, and if you, obviously, one thing what I forgot to do is that because I've got a nose here, you might want to just add some little details to it. You might you know, a little bit of embellishment can make things quite cute quite quickly. So there we go. That's one way of making a little fun lantern. Okay, one other idea we've got is we've got this fun. This is what I was suggesting people might have a bigger box. So this is an A4 paper box, and those of you who've had the email, we've just sent a PDF with this little star map in it. So what you can do is you can get I'm going to start fresh with a fresh piece of just ordinary card and one of these fresh star maps here. And so what I've got is I've got the constellation of Orion, and it might be upside down, but it doesn't really matter because the universe is spinning around really quickly anyway, so things are always upside down and the right way up, and what is the right way up anyway. So what I've got is my constellation of Orion, and I'm just going to tape it down just to secure it briefly. Do a very quick job on that. And so now I've got my template of what Orion looks like. And you might do this in a different way, but I've got a pencil here, and I'm just going to poke through. Again, it's a blunt bit. I'm going to do it this way around so it doesn't fall apart. I'm going to poke through the holes. We'll mark out the position of these holes that will eventually become stars. So I've got my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 main stars of Orion there, and I've just poked the holes in this piece of card. And I'm going to take that away, and so you can see already that I've got sort of a stencil. If I hold my lamp here, you can sort of see through it, but that's no good because I don't want to be holding all of these bits of card. But what I do have is, and this is the classic, here's one I made earlier that's been part completed, is that I've got an Arduino where I've put together 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 LEDs, and I've coded them up, and I've plugged them all in, and you can see I've secured them with this little bit of tape, because once you've put the effort in to kind of make these things, you want to make sure your wires don't fall out, because that's what they always like to do, is they like to fall out. And all you can need to do is that once you've got your, all tangled up now, so I'm just going to do one of them, and then I'm going to pass on to Sarah, because Sarah's done a really cool thing. I'm going to release one of my wires, so you can see, just as a reminder from before, I've got my LED extension wire here. You can see where I've separated out the legs there, and I've attached my jumper wire to it. And all I need to do is I need to pop my LED through the board there, and I'm just going to plug it in just to show you how that will work. And so I've got a single lamp, a single LED that's on my board, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more to go. And while I'm going to put these in, I'm going to pass on to Sarah. And so Sarah's made an even bigger version of this small scale Orion thing. And Sarah can show you what she's been doing with her setup. There we go.
Hi, yeah, I loved Dane's idea of the stars, but I decided to go bigger because bigger is cool. So I made Orion bigger. And what I did, so some of my lights you can't see very well. but I haven't finished coding mine yet. They are all on, but some of them are a lot brighter than others, because all the stars in Orion, when you look at it in the sky, some of the stars are a lot brighter than the others. So I did some Googling, I searched online, and I found out a bit more about all the different stars, and I used different resistors to make the LEDs different brightnesses. So you learned from Tinkercad that a small resistor makes an LED brighter, and a bigger value resistor will make it a lot dimmer. So the dimmer stars have got really big resistors. I'm going to turn my light out to see if it's a bit clearer. They are all on, but some of them are on more than others. So I've still got a bit of work to do, a bit of troubleshooting on mine, and then I've got to code it. But there's so yeah, it's a bit of a work in progress, but I'm really happy with it, and it looks a bit of a mess on the back, but it's been a lot of fun. I've been enjoying making this today. And while I've got the screen, I'm just going to show you one last quick thing. Someone was asking in the chat about how many LEDs we can connect up to the Arduino at once, and wanting to make messages with LEDs. Now, we don't have that many pins, but if you put a piece of paper or something thin in front of the LED, when the LED is really close to the paper, it makes a really bright spot. But the further away you go, the more light, the wider the light is. It doesn't show up very well on the screen. You'll have to do a bit of testing yourselves with some paper. But if you wanted to cut shapes out of a piece of cardboard and then maybe put some paper on the front, if you work out how far away to put the LEDs, you could make that whole shape light up really nicely. Sorry, I didn't manage to prepare a real demo, but hopefully that gives you a few ideas for extra things you could do. Right.
That is such a cool idea, Sarah. I want to play with that.
So this is my battery again, and so a bit like what Sarah's done. So I've now managed to plug all my LEDs into. So the back might look quite chaotic, but as Sarah showed you, if you just you have a little bit of patience, you can make it so that your design on the right side is nice and neat. So I'm just going to hang this one up in place where my lovely sea creature was. So I've got a bit of Orion. I'm going to move that out of the way. So I've got a bit of Orion blinking around, and this is where your box might come in useful. So rather than having a flat piece of card there, I've just done the same thing, and you can see where I've poked the holes in for my Orion there, and I've got the W of Cassiopeia going on over here. Then I've got my bit of the Big Dipper or the plough going on over here. So if you were able to print out this PDF that's been sent on the email, or if you want to just do what Sarah's done and just make the shape, or make any shape that you like, actually, so you can make your own constellations up. You can find a way of the workings of this. So you've now got the same as the egg box, but it's just a slightly bigger situation. That means that you can do something more imaginative with your box that you've now saved from the recycling. So that's one idea, and I think we've got another couple of ideas. I think Vicky's got something fun to share with the make as well. And maybe we've got a few minutes for that too.
Yeah. Another thing you can make could be a shooting star. So you can get a scrap bit of paper, like I had my leaflet earlier, and I drew a shooting star on the back, which I could cut out, and then here's one I made earlier. There's a cardboard one, and I've got my LED in here, and I can poke holes. This one's made of cardboard, so it's a bit firmer, and I can poke holes using a bent paper clip to add more LEDs, and then you can wire them up, and you could make them flash, you could make them shoot from one down to the other with your code. You could have them all light up. And I think Sophie has got one that she has made earlier that is actually attached to an Arduino. So we can have a look on Arduino Cam. Can we pin Arduino Cam?
Yeah. All right. So this is, here's one I made earlier. And it's connected to, well, I say here's one I made earlier. Vicky and I make a really good team. So Vicky helped me with some of it, and then I helped Vicky with other bits of it, which is just like we do in all of the kind of science we do here on site. We work as a team to do the bits that we all enjoy the most. So here's our lovely shooting star, and I've connected it up to my Arduino here, see? And then if I press the button, you'll see my star twinkles, just like Dane's constellations twinkle, and Sarah's Orion twinkled. I like the story of Orion, everyone. I love all of the stories of them. So lots of different things that you could do. With this one. So if I just go a little bit closer, you'll see that Vicky has helped by putting some masking tape here just to make sure that everything is in really securely and we don't lose those connections, because like Dane said, actually it's really easy for the connections to disappear, and you think you've done it, or at least I think I've done it, and then it all falls apart and you've got to do it again and again and again. But that's okay, you just have to be patient.
Be patient. Okay. Absolutely it. So I hope that's given you a couple of fun ideas of what to maybe do with some of your creative coding and making. And there was another lantern that we made a couple of years ago that came back. This is a really simple one. You may have seen this lantern before, but any shape that you make out of bits of scrap paper or foil or plastic from the recycling, there's loads of different ideas to get creative. And I'm sure if you put into a search engine crafty lantern making, you could get some ideas, but hopefully we've given you a couple of ideas to get making something that is inspired by a bit of astronomy and maybe a little bit of underwater work too. So hopefully that's given you some ideas for making something. Next week, we're going to be building in some kinetic stuff. So we're going to be putting motor into your circuit. So we'll be using a servo motor that time, and we'll be able to do some coding about that. Thanks everyone so much for being involved. It's been great to see everyone this week, and we'll be back next week to do some more coding and adding a servo motor to the session. But from the team, from Sophie, from Sarah, from Vicky and myself, well done. And if anyone has any great examples of lanterns to make, please do send some photos or maybe some video. We'd love to see them. Keep on working and crafting and coding, and we'll see you next week. Thanks everyone.
See you next week.